Hi, I'm Wendy Yi, and welcome to the Dice Tower. I have a few rapid fire roundup games. This is where I'm going to quickly review some games. Some are big, some are little, some are good scores, some are bad scores. So this is for the months of April and May kind of combined. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, I'm going to start with a penguin game. Penguins are the Yi family mascot, and so of course we had to try it. This is Iluliaq or Iluliaq. And what it is a little card throwing dexterity game. So you have a little island in the middle, a little iceberg that you're trying to throw your penguins onto. If they slide off, which will probably happen, then you have to draw another card, and you're just trying to shed all the cards from your hand. Now, it's not just penguins in your hand. There's also polar bears, which I guess eat other penguins that land on top of them, so that people still have to draw a card even if they made it on top. And then I think there's dolphins or shamus or something like that. Orcas is the correct technical term. That have fallen off. If those fall in the water, they're fine because they're water creatures. So you don't have to draw a card. So anyways, it's just completely random, the cards that you get, and then throwing them is a dexterity element. I don't know. I thought this game was just meh. It's a 5. But my daughter really liked it. She thought it was very cute, and she enjoyed throwing the cards. In fact, we played it one day, and she asked to play it again the next day. So, you know, kids, man. Kids don't know what good games are. So I'm giving it a 5, Iluliaq. Next up is Snow Planner. This is a dice placement game, and the theme is having a resort or a hotel in a snow touristy area. So you've got skiing and snowboarding and all that stuff that I know nothing about because I'm from the desert and then I moved to Florida. So I don't do snow, I don't know snow, but that's the theme of the game. I do understand hotels and resorts though, a little bit. And so it's interesting because this game has some theme to it, and then also in other ways it feels a little pasted on. I at least feel like the snow elements are, maybe? I don't know. Anyways, let's talk about it. So one thing that does feel thematic is that you have guests that are going into rooms. You have 3 rooms you can put guests in. You want them to stay for a long time, and you want to meet their needs. And the way that you meet their needs is usually by having certain views or certain windows that they want to look through, I guess. The window part is a stretch for me. It's a big stretch. And it's also a mechanism that I don't necessarily love. I feel like it could be so much better. So anyways, you keep people happy by having the right color windows in your little like 3x3 or 4x4 grid. And then on top of that, that grid is also specifically, it has little diagrams. There's other cards that have diagrams and you want to match that diagram with windows. But basically, if you just fill in all the windows, then you match all the diagrams. But the cards that you get from doing all that hard work of putting out all the windows, which are kind of hard to do, and filling them in, then you get this action that is not much stronger than just a regular action. That was disappointing to me. But anyways, other than that, I think it's a cute theme. I think that the resources have a tightness to them that I appreciate. I definitely, at the beginning, I was like, I don't know how I'm going to be able to do anything. But you do progress. And this is a game where you do get points, you do succeed at stuff, and you do build things. So I'm going to go ahead and give this a 7. I think that it's a good game. I enjoyed it. I'd play it again for sure. Once again, the theme maybe slightly pasted on, maybe not. You tell me what you think. I want to know. So there you go. That's Snow Planner. I'm giving it a 7. All right, let's talk about Tesseract. This is a cooperative game where you have a cube of cubes. It's a cube of dice, and you're trying to remove all the you're trying to remove cubes so that you can complete the Tesseract requirements, but you don't want to remove all the cubes because then you'll lose. There's also ways it's a little bit of like push your luck to bust as you're pulling cubes off because you roll them. And if you ever get too many of the same thing in the same region, then there's problems and bad stuff happens, right? And so this is interesting because I like a lot of it. And honestly, I really like the 3D printed, like Thanos hand that Joey printed out for it because that's cool. I really like the Lazy Susan idea that it can move around so you don't have to stand up and look to see, hey, what cube do I want to pull off? What cubes are accessible? So I think that it was made really well in that regard. The actual gameplay, I think, is fun, and I think it's an interesting little co-op game. I'm not like blown away by it, so it's not this amazing, wow, this is an awesome co-op game, but I think the card play is interesting. The way that you're trying to draw cards and the way that you can level up your cards so that you're not just stuck with level 1 cards, you can actually like take time to move them up to higher cards that give you better abilities and stronger things. There's also some cooperation that goes on, and everyone has special player powers. So I think that there's some interesting stuff going on in this. I'm going to give this a 7.5 because I enjoy a lot of the elements to it. It's lacking in theme. It does just feel like I'm pulling cubes off of stuff, but I'm not a huge themer, so I'm 100% okay with that. I do wonder about the legs of it long term. You can make it harder, and I have zero desire to make it harder. There's a bunch of different levels, and I basically played on the starter level, and I was like, that was good. I don't need it more difficult. But if you want that, that's there for you. So here you go. Tesseract is going to be a 7.5 for me. The Plot Thickens. Da-da-da-da-da. All right, so The Plot Thickens is a trilogy of storytelling games, and it's basically just this huge deck of cards and some individual player pieces, and you draw cards throughout the game. You have to play like people and places and things and stuff. And then as you use them in stories, and as you use the ones that other people have already used in their story, because you want all your stories to cohese, you can play out your stuff on their stories. And the person who does the best at including everybody and everything gets to finish the story, basically. They get to be the winner. It's interesting because I am not a storytelling person. I feel like I greatly lack in those skills. This is probably why I'm not a themer when it comes to being a gamer. I love reading stories. I love playing games that have cohesive stories in them. And in fact, I enjoy playing this game and watching everybody else make up their stories. And then I'm like, oh no, it's my turn. I need to do a thing. Yeah, it's not my skill. It's not my forte. I'm going to give this a 5.5. I'm going to say 5.5. I'm going to give this a 5.5 because it's not a bad game and it's not a game that I hate. And in fact, I enjoyed playing it a couple times as like an exercise in something that I'm really bad at doing. So it's a 5.5 because it's kind of in that in between of like, do I want to play it again? Do I not want to play it again? If someone asks me, will I play it again? Maybe. Depends. It has to be someone that I'm very comfortable with looking like an idiot around because yeah, storytelling, terrible. On that note, mechanically, I think it's okay. I think that it's easy to game the game if you're bad at the storytelling part, which is 100% what I would do. And so I would just start combining stuff that didn't make sense. And then also, it's really hard to tell a cohesive story when everyone's starting out from a different point and everyone else has a main character that they are trying to tell their story from. I think that good stories are pre-planned. Good stories have a beginning, a middle, and end. They have some sort of struggle. And in a game like this, it's hard to come with the struggle. Maybe people are super skilled and they can figure that out. That's great. So it was a really long time for me to basically say it's a 5.5. So there you go. That is, what did I call it? The Plot Thickens. Let's talk about Patterns. Patterns is basically a follow-up game to Mandala, which I love Mandala. This is one of my favorites. And Patterns has a similar scoring mechanism. So basically, as you pick colors to score and you activate their scoring, you place them down on this little 1 through 6 or whatever. And so the first one that you activate is worth 1 point. The second one you activate is worth 2 points. And then that's a multiplier times however many that you get on the board activated at the end of the game. So you want to prioritize getting the largest chunks of the higher point things, obviously. But at the same time, you have to start somewhere. And so you have to start with the ones and progress on. This is an interesting, like, abstract interactive game. And I'm not always an abstract person, but I like that scoring. And it's interesting how the choices I feel like are good, but they're simple. So on your turn, you can activate a scoring color and say, like, this is where it's starting. My blues are now activated. I can only ever add blues adjacent to this blue, basically. So it's going to be a region that grows, right? So you can either activate a color or you can add to that color, and you add to it by taking a disc if you happen to have that color, and you place it down and you replace it with the disc that's already there. Or you can flip over a disc that's already there adjacent of the correct color. So I can flip over a blue, or I can place a blue adjacent to where I started my blues. You also have to have space in between your colors and the other player's colors. So I can't have my blues next to their blues because our regions would just combine and they wouldn't be separate regions, right? So there's some interesting elements of like, I'm going to play defensively, I'm going to play offensively. There's some good stuff going on. So I'm going to give this a 7.5. I enjoyed it. I don't necessarily love it as much as I enjoyed Mandala, but maybe it just requires time and play. We'll see. So there you go. Patterns is a 7.5 for me. All right, let's talk about another game that I liked. This is Lunar. Lunar is a trick-taking game that gets played in pairs. So you have another player opposite of you, and they are going to either play a color or a suit, basically. So a color or a number, and you're going to play the opposite of that. So you're going to play the other half of it. So if they play a number first, you have to play the color, and then that combined will be the thing that's being judged for the trick, while the other team is doing the same thing. So they may say, hey, we're going to play red, and they're going to play a 5, and then I'm going to play a 6, and you're going to play a red. I hope you have a red. So it's an interesting game. It has a lot of those classic trick-taking feels. It has that cooperation that you get with some of the heavier trick-taking games. But at the same time, it's light, and it feels the weight of like spades or hearts, or, you know what I mean, that kind of stuff. So it gives me that classic feel while having that cool, cooperative interaction with that opposite player. I do like the hidden, there's a little bit of communication at the beginning. I think you share like 2 or 3 cards with each other, so you can swap out, so you can kind of plan your hand better. I like that idea of that silent communication of like, ooh, are you giving me your highest cards? You're giving me lowest cards? You're giving me in between cards? What are you telling me from these cards? And that's all the communication. And from that point, you're just communicating by playing cards. And so I think that it's very clever. I'm going to give this an 8. I like a lot of what's going on with it. And once again, that it has those classic feels that I enjoy. So that is Lunar, giving it an 8. Let's talk Battle of Versailles. So this is a fashion-themed game, and it's based around this historical time where France, it's like France versus America fashion, and it's basically, are the new up-and-coming Americans going to be the ones who are on top in the fashion industry, or is the classic France fashion that's so famous and has so much history going to be the one who makes it on top? So this is a 1 versus 1 game. It's very head-to-head. It's a card game, and you're going through the same steps every round. I don't typically like head-to-head games, especially ones where there's a lot of, I do something, you undo it. I do something, you undo it. You do something, I undo it. And this game has a lot of that. So there's these, you can upgrade your actions. So as you go down the little action train, you can upgrade stuff so that you get more benefit. But then someone can come right in and they can unupgrade it depending on what cards they've drawn and depending on what cards you've drawn. So this is really highly dependent on the cards that you draw as to whether or not you can react to opponent and whether or not they can react to you. There's also like a famous people lineup. I think they're models, like famous models or designers. Are they models or designers? Let me know. But there's these people that, and it's kind of like you're trying to have all these famous people, and it really just depends on whether or not they come up in your deck as to whether or not you get the bonuses, because it's one of the ways to get bonuses, and a way to win is if you like fully fill up all your famous people and you get rid of all theirs, kind of thing. I don't like that track because it's very tug-of-war-y, and it's 100% dependent on whether or not you draw those people and the other person doesn't draw those people. So this game has some things I like. It has some elements. It's got some cool powers that you can get. There's like a few different ways to win. But at the end of the day, it's not my favorite. So I'm going to give this a 6. I don't love it. I'd play it again if someone really wanted to play it. I would give it another try, but it just didn't sing to me. It didn't speak to me. I love the theme. I think it's such a cool theme. And I just wish that mechanically it was a little bit more for me. So there you go. That's going to be Battle of Versailles, and that is a 6. Terrorscape. This is a game that is one versus many. And I have to say, I am almost always going to be on the side of the many, I think, in one versus many games. I just enjoy... If it's going to be a type of game that I don't typically play, I would rather play it cooperatively. If it's going to be a dice checking game, if it's going to be hidden movement, if it's going to be some of these elements that I don't always love, I want to be on the cooperative side, right? In this game, the one is like some sort of murderer or ghost or somebody that's trying to kill everybody in this mansion. And then the many is people trying to get out of this mansion, right? And there's a couple different ways to win, and many ways to lose and die. But in this game, you've got really tight actions. There's only a couple things you can do on your turn. You make noise so that the other, the person trying to attack you gets ideas of where you might be, but there's ways to give false noise or false ideas, and there's places to run around to and hide. So it's an interesting hidden movement game, and I like it more than many of them. I think it helps that the area that you can move in is very small. But then also I'm not the one searching. I'd rather be the one hiding, I think, than the one searching. So I enjoyed that cooperative feel, that I could have that group with me. I think thematically it's very cute. I guess cute is maybe not the right word, but it's a cool theme. I enjoy the minis, and that player screen is so cool, like so very cool. It comes with a little dice tower and stuff. So there's some cool elements to it. I'm going to give this a 7 because I liked it. I didn't love it, but I liked it. And I would play it again. Once again, I would not be the one. I would just be the many. So there you go. That's Terrorscape. Last up on my list is Orange Shall Overcome. This is a historical game that takes place during the Dutch Resistance. I guess that's the full title of it, is Dutch Resistance, Orange Shall Overcome. And this is basically a peaceful resistance that people are trying to do during the Nazi invasion. And so it's an interesting historical game. It's very approachable in the sense that it's a very welcoming game. It's got a lot of rules, but it's thematic and cool and involved. And a lot of historical games have that trope, or they seem to be very dry and very combative and such. So this one's interesting because I feel like it looks approachable in its design. I think the story behind it and the mechanical elements of it are good. It's not like an easy game, but I think that they're approachable in that way. So in Dutch Resistance, Orange Shall Overcome, there's multiple scenarios that you can do, which means you have different objectives every game. Maybe you're trying to convince people to be on your side. So you're going to different shops or different locations and you're saying, hey, join our resistance. Whereas you may have other ones where you're like, oh, we have to get people out of the city because, the Nazis are coming after them. Let's get them out. And through this game, it has these crossroad-like cards. So back in the Dead of Winter days and in the Freelancer day, you know what I mean? The crossroad cards where you have a story and then you have a really tough decision. So basically, anytime that you run into a patrol or roadblock, those kind of things, you get some sort of story card that talks about what choices you're going to make in those moments. Maybe someone's wanting to check your papers. And so you're like, hey, do I lie and say that they're just at home? Do I show them falsified documents, but maybe they won't accept them? Do I lie about somebody else and, make them look in a different direction at someone else and give someone else a really hard time so that I can sneak through and meet my objectives? So there's some really interesting decisions there and some really heart-wrenching ones as well. So I think that that's very cool. I like the theme. Mechanically, I think that it's fun. It's a cooperative game. It's tight. It's not necessarily super easy to win. I think the character's very interesting. I think they're all historical figures. It's really cool how that is all included. And then, it's those real elements, those real decisions that I think are just, they're heart-wrenching and it's fascinating. Do I play so that I can meet my goals, or do I play so that I can have, integrity as a person with morals and stuff? So fascinating little decisions there. So Dutch Resistance, Orange Shall Overcome, I'm going to give this an 8.5. I think it's a very cool game, and I'm excited to try more of the scenarios. So there you go. Thanks for joining me today. This was a rapid fire roundup. I'm Wendy Yi, and tell me how you feel about these games. What ratings would you give them? I'll talk to you later. Have fun gaming.
Hey folks, thanks for watching another one of our videos. If you like our videos, if you like our channel, if you would love to game with us at one of our conventions, check out Dice Tower Cruise, Dice Tower East, and Dice Tower West. Fantastic conventions where we play games with wonderful people, a humongous library, and lots of other events and stuff. Also, don't forget to check out our channel, like and subscribe. I'm Tom Bassel.